And we're live.
Oh, where did I live in? On the truck. Okay. Are you ready? Okay. My name is Dan Lear, and the project that I'm going to talk about is reentry. But ours, they were saying earlier that there's 6 projects, but 5 will only be judged. Ours is the one that won't be judged. So judges, you can just sit back as Daza and I entertain you, and the rest of you can sit back as well. But I actually want to take an opportunity. I'll tell you quickly about the project, but then I want to just spend a few minutes to kind of tell a story and maybe steal a little bit of thunder from the ABA Journal folks about why I think these events are so important and kind of how I got wrapped up in all of this and why I think it's so neat. But I'll tell you quickly about our tool. So this is a project that was born and inspired by the drug court, the really innovative drug court that Judge Ann Aiken in the Federal District Court of Oregon has developed. And her project is based off of, and so it's for reentrants who have gone through drug court and are coming back into society, re-entering society. And I'm going to skip through a few of these, but it's based off of 5 criminogenic factors that research has identified are more likely to result in folks recidivizing, re-offending after they've re-entered society. And so what we did, and again, I'll tell you the story about how I got there, because I think or how we got there. I think it's very interesting. But we thought, can we take these criminogenic factors and can we build an app that would address these different factors? And so we're still in design. We don't have a prototype yet. We're working on that. And again, I'll discuss that when I get to my story. But this is what our basic design framework would look like. And it's got tools that would help the re-entrant to stay in communication with his family, his or her family, to stay in communication with their probation officer, to stay in communication with potentially a Narcanon or an Al-Anon sponsor. It's also got potentially a jobs app, or excuse me, functionality that would give them access, because employment is one of the key criminogenic factors. So helping them to find jobs that are relevant to them and that meet their skill set, and that they can do that right within the app. A scheduling app which helps them to keep track of all the meetings that they have to do, meetings potentially with social workers, again with their sponsors or with their probation officers, with family visitation visits if that's an issue, all within the app. And one of the interesting problems that we're really thinking about and that we think is key as we develop this is many of these folks have a relatively low, I think, Professor Rothstein, we're gonna need your app first to determine if these folks determine their level of technological competence, to determine whether this experience would just be too overwhelming for them, because many of them have never even engaged with technology. And so, but one of the design issues and one of the things that we've thought about is we want, even though maybe all of these functions are available through separate applications, we want to put it all in one place so that someone who's not familiar with technology or is very overwhelmed by their re-entrance into society can have everything in one place and easily get what they need without having to navigate back and forth. Because again, if you've been outside of technology or society and you've not been accustomed to technology for a long time, then navigating this a smartphone alone could be a difficult challenge. So there's some examples. We want to do this through an API-based open network. We want to make this technology free and available to anybody who wants to use it. I think initially we thought Android, but ultimately I think the aspiration is absolutely to make it device agnostic. Here's our implementation phases. I'll talk a little bit about that. But I want to step back just for a moment and explain sort of how this came about, and then I'm going to let you talk at the end of that really.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll let you talk, Barry.
Okay. So I got involved with this project at the data privacy, and it's funny that this didn't end up being even a data privacy project, but at the data privacy project at the legal hackathon in Brooklyn that followed reInvent Law. And this was, even though I have a group that is ostensibly a legal hacking group, well, it is a legal hacking group, I had never participated in a legal hackathon. This is my first event. And Judge Aiken came and she gave a really inspired talk about her vision for this project, about what she wanted to do. And I'm not a coder. I've asked Dave Venish to teach me how to code, and that's something that's in progress. But I don't do that. I would consider myself relatively technologically adept, but I can't write code. So I wondered, like, what would I do at this hackathon? But I helped to organize it. I helped to raise some money for it. So I figured I should show up. And Judge Aiken came, and she gave this really impassioned speech. And then Daza he can tell you about himself, but he works over at MIT at the Media Lab, and his intern, Lena Casey, who was a Harvard law student. And for those of you who know Doc Searles, he was there. And and then Joshua Lennon from Clio, it was like this all-star sort of cast. Judge Aiken gave this talk, and like this group formed. And I literally had this moment where I sort of stepped back and I said, okay, that looks like something I'd really like to be involved with, but I sort of had a couple of other ideas for my projects, like I'm not sure whether I want to do this. And I just basically inserted myself. And this is not a story about me. What I think is, and ultimately that's led to my ability to collaborate with Daza. I collaborate closely with Judge Aiken. It's led to other opportunities. It's just been an absolutely fantastic sort of networking and professional experience for me. And where it's going is awesome, but before I want to get there, what I really love about these events and what this app meant to me and what I hope and what I think these types of events represent is that lawyers who, at least me, and at least according to my training, I was hesitant to jump in. I was hesitant to get my hands on things. I didn't think I had anything to offer. And just by simply inserting myself and like trying to make myself a part of this really interesting project, I've had the opportunity to be a part of it. Even though I don't write code, I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And I really think that, at least for someone like me, that's what's so inspirational about what's going on here. Is that it's an opportunity for people to just dig their hands in and learn. I've read a little bit about the original hackers from MIT, and they talk about the hands-on imperative. And I think that it's fabulous to be having this event in law school where we sometimes discourage law students from getting their hands on things, from breaking things, from learning by doing. And it's so fantastic to have events like this that allow everybody to just come, learn, throw something together, see what you can put together in 2 days, and go from there. And let that experience govern what happens and not necessarily what the outcome is, whether it works well, whether it's pretty, whether it's here's cancer. And the beautiful thing, the end of the story is Daza has pitched a class to his leadership at MIT called Legal Hackathon, of which this application will be a part, and I'll let him talk about that. But it's just neat to have seen this event, this project evolve to that, and to continue to allow me to be a part of it when, again, at the beginning, I wasn't even sure I would have served myself. So we'll turn that very quickly.
So this is, you could say, is one of the types of legal hackathon projects that has longitudinality, where it's iterative progress has been made at the third legal hackathon, where we have done, we're not showing the screens, but we've hacked the screens. We've done a fair amount. It's a good thing we're not competing. One of our judges has been helping as well. So that's success in the sense that there's a lot you can do in 2 days, and there's, of course, a lot you can't do in 2 days. So projects that need a lot of hacking benefit from having people hack at them across venues and across time, across contexts. So in that spirit, at the Media Lab in MIT, we do very applied project-oriented classes frequently. And of course, I'm teaching next semester. A lot of the projects, in fact, were projects that have arisen from or that we've worked on at legal hackathons. We really like legal hackathons at the Media Lab. It occurred to me just about a week ago, well, why don't I just make the class legal hackathon? And then wrap curriculum around that, wrap some explanation of the contracts and the jurisprudence and the topics relevant to the projects. And so the benevolent overlords did accept the idea. And so that looks like what we're going to do next semester. And this will be one of the projects that will be supported. Every project has a leader. Dan is the leader of the project. So to the extent that there's projects here out at this hackathon that people would like to continue working on after the hackathon, I'd invite you to take a look at the class and to consider submitting it as one of the community submitted projects and give students and others an opportunity to join a team and to work on it. So we'll have students at the lab and some other students in Brooklyn Law School and I hope Suffolk Law and some other partners hacking away at things. But also we do community things in Media Lab all the time. We have MOOCs. There's 23,000+ people in the last class that I was involved in my lab on social physics. So we have an opportunity to attract a number of people online through partnerships and through our website to propose projects and to work on projects. And so the notion of expanding across more time and across more people and truly scaling based on technology for hackathons, we think has legs, and we're just beginning to explore that. In closing, please consider helping Dan and the rest of the team on ReEntryApp. This is really, I'd say, this is like the molten heart of what we mean by access to justice for people who serve their time and who are now attempting to reenter society, and for whom technology could make a real difference in terms of the outcomes. A simple app could go a long way and could change a great many lives by just connecting in the programs that exist now. And so if you have APIs and you represent social service agencies or probation, probation offices that have platforms or services or apps that are accessible through an API, if you're familiar with social work or other programs that folks that are coming back into society might be using or would be using that have APIs in particular, really want to hear from you. And if you just want to get involved and learn and to hack, please do. I think the story that Dan said. Everybody can be a legal hacker. Really, what all it requires in a tool set or a skill is that you make the decision that you're going to give it a try, and that you will roll up your sleeves and try to hack into existence the reality that we're seeking. That's what Dan did, and that's what any of us can do. So please join us. Hack the law. It's your law. It always has been. So let's work it. Thank you.
Gaza, are you thinking at all about how to kind of channel all of what's going? There's a lot of stuff going on a lot of fronts.
Either we need music or lights, one or the other. Your Honor, esteemed judge of the panel.
I don't have a robe, so. Are you thinking at all in terms of designing this course, in terms of how to start to channel some of what's going on around the country? I mean, this Legal Services Corporation has done so much in this area. There are a lot of sort of development hotspots all around the country looking at areas of developing technology for access to justice. You're designing this course. Is there a way to start to think about, how do we make the best use of this to address the most urgent needs and best to bridge this gap in the access to justice.
And did the beginning of the sentence was, have you looked at or have you talked to who?
Have you thought about it in terms of designing this course? Have you thought at all about?
Oh, I see. Okay, yes. So the answer is yes, and I don't know how to do that. And so what I decided was, since Dan's in charge of ReEntryApp, and I think that this is the poster child flagship app for access to justice. You know, it touches so many parts of where the gap is and how to think creatively about it. My hope is that this project will be a springboard to begin to attract more experienced people from government and from judiciary and from social services to begin to develop what those issue sets are. So I identified it as something that needs to be talked about. I don't know, I don't have a curriculum, I don't have a speech, I don't have an answer for it, and my hope is that this app can be helpful. And if you had something in mind about it, I'd like to hear your ideas, but I think Dan has some, can add a lot to this.
I think what I heard in your question about was there seems to be a lot of activity in this space, and how can we sort of capture the energy?
Yeah, how to channel.
So, and I'll hawk my own product, although I make no money from it. There are legal hacking groups that are creeping up, popping up, and it's still here. Phil Weiss, so Phil Weiss from the no, not Bill, but I like Bill, from the New York Legal Hackers is involved in that. But I have a legal innovation and technology group in Seattle. They're popping up in cities all over the country, and I think what we're seeing is a developing grassroots network where we have, and in my group, yeah, we have a lot of lawyers, but we also have developers who just show up and they're like, I don't really know what's going on here, but it's almost like Field of Dreams. But this sounds really interesting, and I want to be a part of it. Yeah, exactly. So I think those groups are really interesting, and they're increasingly interconnected and sharing ideas and topics. So I think that's one way. Again, to hawk a product that I'm doing for free. Next weekend in San Francisco will be the first legal technology-focused startup weekend event. And I won't go into detail about what that is, but check it out. It's going to be really interesting. And then we're going to run one in Seattle in October. So it's not a hackathon per se, but it definitely has that same ethos. I think what Daz is doing at the Media Lab, I mean, you've been running distributed legal hackathons kind of
the last few months.
Yeah, for the last few months, where and that's what we did at the Brooklyn event too. We didn't necessarily collaborate between groups, but there was a group in New York, there was a group in San Francisco, there was a group in London, all hacking at the same time. So the beauty is, I think, increasingly the kind of people who are involved with these activities, they also get how to connect with other people.
So that's the other point I'd say. I don't know how many people were impressed because I was. I mean, in particular, with William's contribution with two of my favorite lawyers, Dave and David, and how they, from a computer science perspective and like a hardcore law and government perspective, they were able to get together and talk. And they didn't actually know each other before this hackathon. There's a design pattern here that I think can help systemically, that in an emergent way, which is there are computer science folks, hardcore computer science, but also the broader developer community knows stuff that we don't know, and that their knowledge of how to use agile methods, how to apply integrated apps and services together to create business capability that can be deployed in an agile way, for example, how to use technology in an intelligent, well-adapted way to get things done, merely by having the right fora, the right academic places, the right sort of professional extracurricular things like this hackathon. By bringing us together on projects, I think there's inexorably going to be some gap filled within the law, because then when we know the special magic of technology in the same way that other industries do, we will have good ideas about how to use it. Just as Billy Calaruso and Dave Spinach knew what to do with this, some of the industry and then adjacent kind of sentencing guidelines and some other things in that design pattern. There's computer science. This is like not part of the computer science. There's some building algorithms and a few other things, but stuff that I can do as a lawyer. They cut through like a blowtorch through an ice cube. And so I think once we get people together, some of this will get a merchant property. How many people think it would be great if William co-taught my class with me at the Media Lab? Would that be amazing? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, it would be great. Yeah. So I know he's probably overstressed next semester, but boy, that would be great. So computer science and Media Lab co-teaching, we're filling that gap. No pressure. Ma'am?
Oh, yes, about having the interns involved.
Not enough. So there's Chaka, who's a fellow at the Media Lab now, who's his time in prison, who's agreed to help advise us a certain amount from about usability and what the requirements would be. And I think we have another person who's helping us, who's a professor who found out later, actually did serve some time for some white collar crime. And who's going to bring a perspective, but I think something I would very much like to see in the class.
We're going to go deliberate. We'll be back.
I'd like to see outreach to people who have been in prison and who can talk to us and maybe use the app or just tell us what they need, what would make it usable, what are our assumptions that are wrong. Like outreach is necessary. You can do that from a class, it can be a lot easier than from a committee of judges or a Homeland Security or Department of Justice funding committee. It's a whole different ability for people to feel comfortable about talking at home. So if you have ideas about that or know how to reach out to people, I'd be very grateful. Thank you. We better start that. We can talk. And so, because you've been so great about considering joining the ReEntryApp, we decided to give you some pizza in the back of the room. Won't you please lunge and just, Professor Perlman, did you want to sort of like okay, so we're going into recess. Okay, the judges are in deliberation. Okay, thanks. Money, Chuck.
And that's the way we did it.